Hey, welcome to the Trash Picture Show. Today I'm going to be going over my entire animated DVD collection, and I'm going to be starting off with Hayao Miyazaki's Castle of Cagliostro. This is basically his first animated feature. This is before Studio Ghibli and Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke. Essentially, it is a feature-length episode of Lupin the Third, and Lupin decides to rescue a princess and stop an evil count's counterfeiting scheme. Great fun, great heist movie, and if you're a fan of Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke, it is a must-watch. Gorgo XIII, very cool, hard-boiled kind of assassin story. Essentially, Gorgo has killed the wrong person, and now the CIA and the US Army are after him, along with a bunch of weird kind of mutants and mercenaries. Two in particular called Gold and Silver, very kind of fabulous looking bad guys. But this is some heavy adult themes, a lot of sex, a lot of violence. But if you're a fan of old school, old style kind of anime, which is very hard boiled and hard bitten, this is one to check out. Next up, Helsing. The original Helsing series is pretty cool. Essentially, it tells the story of a renegade vampire who works for a group called Section 13 and is instructed by Integra Helsing, the ancestor of Van Helsing. He hunts other vampires, zombies, all agents of darkness, and while he is on the human race's side, he is been known to attack and kill humans. Very cool series. If you're a fan of the likes of Underworld or Blade, this is one to check out. The latter series, Helsing Ultimate, I have an issue with. The animation style kind of takes a major dip, and the voice acting also drops. But do check out the original series and maybe give Ultimate a miss. Next up, AD Police. This is a very cool kind of cyberpunk show which tells the story of a police department in Neo Tokyo, and they essentially have to deal with robotic freaks and renegade cyborgs and out of control AI. And there is, again, like, it is a late 80s, early 90s anime, so there is a lot of sex and a lot of violence in it, but it does kind of take a lot of elements from Blade Runner and Dark City. It is a pretty cool show, and as I said, if you're a fan of the kind of old school gritty hard bitten anime, this is one to check out. This is pretty cool. Street Fighter 2. This was an awesome animated movie, and I think the live action movie overshadowed it. Essentially follows the what little plot there is of the game Street Fighter 2, and Ken is being targeted by M. Bison because his skill is that to match Ryu, who beat Sagat in the last tournament, and he's using these cyborgs to kind of control people and recruit people, and it's up to Ryu, Chun-Li and Guile to stop M. Bison's kind of nefarious goings on. As I said before with these other ones, if you're a fan of late 80s, early 90s anime, very cool. Also, Alice in Chains is on the soundtrack to this, so can't go wrong with that. Next up, Afro Samurai. I watched this when it was on Adult Swim, and it's pretty cool. It's very stylized, and it's got the awesome Samuel Jackson. If you're a fan of like the Lone Wolf and Cub comics or the Samurai and Baby Cart live action show, this would definitely be one to check out. Very, very violent and very visceral, with an awesome kind of hip hop soundtrack, and again Samuel Jackson, so you can't go wrong. Next up, Ring, Daughter of the Mesmerine. This is a weird one. This is essentially an immortal detective, and she is kind of a freelance mercenary and detective who she's lived an unknown number of years, and she just can't be killed, and she seems to have a love affair with this one individual and his ancestors, and there is a really cool kind of eroticism to the actual anime. If you were a fan of kind of more edgier, darker animes like the likes of Death Note and Gantz, this would be one to check out. A lot of violence, a lot of sexual content, but the story itself is rather engaging. And if I had to kind of if I had to compare it to anything, I think it would probably be a cross between 50 Shades of Grey and Saw. But there is a very cool kind of detective element in it. And if you're a fan of either the likes of Death Note or Gantz, this one is well worth a look. Also, I think some of the guys behind Tokyo Ghoul were involved in this, so yeah, well worth a look. Next up, a freaking classic, Akira. What can I say about Akira that hasn't already been said? It is a staple of science fiction. Essentially, it's set in a future where Tokyo has gone nuclear and rebuilt itself, and there is complete and utter anarchy, and there are cults emerging, and there's pushes for technology, there's pushes for new religions, and a bunch of street punks end up getting embroiled in this almost epic story, which is much beyond themselves. The leader, Canada, as he's pronounced, is kind of a very selfish, jerky kind of guy. But when one of his friends, Tetsuo, is taken by the government, he takes it upon himself to try and rescue him. And through a tragic series of events, both characters find themselves at opposite ends of a battle for essentially the lives of every man, woman, and child in Neo Tokyo. One complaint I have that a lot of people have is that the runtime of this cannot encompass everything that the anime encompassed. It is fantastic, but let's see, the runtime, I'm trying to find a runtime on this, and no joy, but I can tell you straight off that the runtime would not be enough. 124 minutes, runtime of 124 minutes, that's 2 hours, 4 minutes, but I honestly don't think that it would be enough to encompass all 6 volumes of this book. This is a huge book. Akira is a huge book. It is massive, and it covers so many themes such as religion, technology, the human soul, the human spirit, governments. Just there's so much going on in Otomo's story that I don't think a 124-minute runtime can encompass all that. But it does one hell of a good job in an attempt to. If you are a fan, do try and track down these books, because they do fill in a lot of stuff that this movie has to kind of negate. That said, still worth a look if it is a classic anime and there's a reason for it. Next up, we have the Ghost in the Shell box set. This is a fairly cool box set. It's the standalone complex. Now, the original Ghost in the Shell was amazing, but this kind of delves a lot more into the mythology. And if you're a fan of anything cyberpunk or science fiction, this is well worth a look. And there's 3 volumes. There's The Laughing Man, Individual 11, and Solid State of Society, and they are interesting, and it does make for some really good solid sci-fi, and it does make for some interesting anime. It isn't all about shooting or big giant mechs. There is some underlying stuff going on in this series. Now, that's my anime done. Next up we have Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. This essentially tried being a new kind of animated franchise in the vein of kind of the DC animated Bruce Timm's movies and shows, but it didn't last that long. But what we got was fairly cool, and it was very epic. It kind of had a lot of ties to the movies, but done its own thing, and it had the core team, but it introduced other characters, and I think Guardians of the Galaxy turned up, the Punisher was referenced. There's a bunch of other characters that show up in this show, and if you are a fan of Marvel Comics, and if you're a fan of animated series, Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes is well worth a look. Next up, this is awesome. Ren and Stimpy. I love Ren and Stimpy. This somehow made it as a kids show. I do not know how this passed censorship to make it as a kids show, but it is amazing. It is a psychotic TV show that you're just wondering what the fuck is going on. There's one episode where Ren and Stimpy are door-to-door salesmen, and this horse answers the door, and the lads are selling rubber nipples, and the horse is like, "Oh yeah, sure, can a guy make a mistake?" And he looks at Ren and Stimpy and goes, "Maybe I should make 2 more mistakes." And all of a sudden this walrus appears from the corner of the door and goes, "Call the police." And you're like, what the hell am I watching? It is an awesome show, Ren and Stimpy. And I think, yeah, I have all 3 seasons. 1, 2, 3. That's awesome. And if you can track this down, because they are very hard to see on TV now. I think maybe you might catch them on Adult Swim, but a lot of the regular kids networks have kind of outright banned showing Ren and Stimpy. This classic schlock, Thundercats. Some people ask me if I Masters of the Universe or Thundercats, and I say actually I'm both. I do love Thundercats though. The plot is borderline brain dead, but it's essentially a group of the last remaining species of their planet crash land and name the planet Earth to New Thundera. They want to try and start again, but the villainous Mumra has other ideas, and it's up to Lion-O, Chitara, Pantro. Just all the good guys have to stop Mumra from wrecking their day. And if you're a fan of 80s kind of sci-fi or cartoons, Thundercats is a must. There's also a pretty cool documentary on this. Thundercats, Hear the Magic, Hear the Roar. It's about all the fans, and Will Wheaton is the guy who's leading the charge for Thundercats. Again, nothing very clever, but fun as hell. Speaking of fun as hell, Dino Riders. Now, I loved this show as a kid because it had dinosaurs in it, and I watched it again there recently, and it has not aged well. But if you're a die-hard fan, and you must have every piece of Dino Riders merchandise, not just the toys, do try and track down this series. Essentially, it's very like Thundercats. The last kind of race of these Villarons, they're humans. They flee their planet, being chased by the Rulons, and they use a step device to travel back in time, and they end up on Earth in the age of the dinosaurs. Now, the good guys use these gemstones to communicate with the dinosaurs and use them as mounts, but the bad guys have these things called brain boxes. So you have guys on the backs of Triceratopses fighting armored, laser-powered T-Rexes, so you can't go too wrong with it. But yeah, your brain needs to be well switched off to enjoy this. Next up, we have the awesome, odd, and rather kind of kinky TV show Aeon Flux. This was shown on MTV, and it's a hard one to kind of tack down. Basically, Aeon is a kind of sensual assassin slash spy, and she lives in this kind of very sensual city and future where everything is done with the body and experimented on, and the poor are kind of like guinea pigs, and the rich have all these kind of weird kind of fetishes and stuff, and she's trying to kind of, negate the balance. And for some reason in the original shorts she always died, and I think his name is Goodchild, the bad guy, Trevor Goodchild. He ends up bringing her back, and then he kills her, and it's weird because there is this kind of almost sadomasochistic relationship between the two of them. But the animation style is amazing, and Peter Chun has done some wicked animation. He done the Animatrix, and he also done the Riddick animated movie. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, his animation, you'd recognize it right away. But he started off with Eon Flux. It is a cool show. It's a weird show, but if you're a fan of kind of abstract science fiction, this would be one to check out. Next up, we have these. This is cool. This is the Bruce Timm Batman animated series. I think it's safe to say that this series was the flagship of a lot of current series we have. This show did not pander or talk down to children. It had very kind of scary, interesting, clever stories to tell, and it had an amazing voice cast. I mean, Kevin Conroy is Batman. A lot of people put him up there as one of the best Batmans of all time. Mark Hamill is the Joker. Jesus, he is definitely one of the best Jokers of all time. And just, as I said before, this show did not talk down or treat kids like kids. This was like almost like a kind of movie serial, and there was just a whole cool cast of characters. The designs were awesome. Batman was badass. He wasn't like some goofy kind of Adam West like character. He went in there, he fought, and you had the likes of Joker, Two-Face, Penguin, Poison Ivy. This TV show also introduced a long-term fan favourite, Harley Quinn, and other characters made cameos, from Zatanna to Superman. This show is what launched the DC animated universe, and the likes of the Superman animated series and the Justice League and Justice League animated unlimited animated series wouldn't exist if it wasn't for this. So this is a staple, and I think a lot of other animated shows kind of took note and kind of went, well, you know what, let's not talk down to kids. Let's do something that both kids and adults can enjoy, and that could be almost a feature-length kind of show. So yeah, the Bruce Timm animated series of Batman is a must. If you're an animation nut, check it out. Last up, we have the Real Ghostbusters. I do know that back in the 60s, the Hanna-Barbera had a live-action Ghostbusters show, which they revitalized in the 80s to capitalize on the Ghostbusters movie. So they decided to name their show The Real Ghostbusters. And yeah, it's pretty cool. It was zany, it was wicked, it was crazy. That you had some freaking amazing designs from ghosts, from the boogeyman to fearsome flush to zombies on a subway station. This at times was genuinely scary, especially for a child. Couple of interesting little facts. The guy who voices Winston is Jaleel White, who you might know who voiced Sonic. But Ernie Hudson actually went for the role of Winston in the animated show, but lost out to Jaleel, and it's kind of annoying. But not much else to say. Only that the guy who also voiced Peter Venkman voiced Garfield, which is really ironic because Bill Murray later went on to voice the live action Garfield. So yeah, it's weird how the world works. But yeah, this awesome show, and if you get a chance, do track them down, because Ghostbusters the animated series, the Real Ghostbusters animated series, is wicked. So that is essentially my entire animated collection. I think I've one or two roaming the countryside somewhere. I might have them lent to someone or something. They might be just in a box somewhere, but that's for the most part my entire animated collection. And if you've any particular cartoons or animes or animated shows you want to talk about, leave them in the comment below, and I will get back to you. And yeah, like, subscribe, and have a good one. Take care. Bye now.